As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this regular town council meeting to order. I'd like to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks for the many blessings of this day, and we ask, Lord, now that you be with us as we proceed with the business for the town of Clayton. For it's in your great name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Before we get too knee-deep in business this evening, I do want to welcome our Boy Scout Troop 124 from Horn Memorial, who are joining us this evening in the council chamber and working on your citizenship awards. Is that correct? Awesome. Well, welcome. All right. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
We do, Mayor. We would like to remove from tonight's agenda 5A, our introduction of our new employee. Also, we'd like to remove items 6A and B at the applicant's request. We are removing those from the agenda. And we would like to add under old business, so that's 7, and that would be under B, an item entitled Neuse River Water Reclamation Facility Resolution and Budget Amendments. Your two presenters for that will be J.D. Solomon and Robert McKay. And we would also like to remove the closed session, which is item 11 from the agenda.
All right, I have that noted on our agenda. Up next is your consent agenda.
Move we approve.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question with respect to item B under the consent agenda. I personally don't recall discussing that, and I was wondering if maybe our town clerk could enlighten us on when that came before us, possibly.
Sure. It is if Chief Myhan wants to help out with this one as well, it is just a standard item. It had been before you previously, not these roads. It is just a standard ordinance that is sent out from NCDOT. There are no changes being made. It's just basically about signage that will be put up. And you have anything else to add to that, Chief?
Thank you.
I'll second the motion then.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, then we're going to move over to old business, item 7A, East Clayton Community Park, Harmony Playground, design build contract.
Were you?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Joshua Barrett, Town Engineer. Before you, you have 3 items tonight related to Harmony Playground, about the Harmony Playground project. I'm going to give you a brief overview, kind of background of where we're at, where the town's at. Also allow Clayton Community Recreation Foundation to speak as well. And then I'll come back up and walk through some recommendations that staff have to move forward with the project and to see this move forward. It does work. Many of you are familiar with the project. In 2014, the town collaborated with Clayton Community Recreation Foundation to build an all-inclusive playground for children with intellectual and development disabilities. That project became known as Harmony Playground, and it's sited at East Clayton Community Park. CCRF, the Clayton Community Recreation Foundation, has committed to raising funds and have done so for the playground. As well, in the fiscal year 2020 adopted budget, council had committed funds to building restrooms, picnic shelter, and additional parking to go along with the actual playground itself. To date, want to just kind of give you an update on the current funding. As I've mentioned, there is town funds, CCRF, and some grants. To date, CCRF has approximately $575,000 worth of cash donations. They've also have some grants and other in-kind services that are along with that. We have a commitment from for NC Part F grant of just under $87,000. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Town Council had committed $700,000 to this project. So right now, to date, we have just under $1.5 million worth of funding towards this project. The total estimated project, if you include the restrooms, the parking, the shelters, the playground, everything, is right around $2.1 million. That's an estimate kind of taking into account everything. Some of that's already been spent. We'll get to that, but just the total project is about $2.1 million. So an update on what's been completed and still what is left. CCRF has completed and worked through their fundraising. There's been site investigations that include geotechnical work and other. The playground has been designed by a consultant. There's been initial clearing, and the playground equipment has actually been purchased from the supplier. And so roughly, taking into account all those, there's been approximately $450,000 that's been spent on this project. Remaining items include the site work associated with the actual playground area, assembly, and actually putting the playground equipment in the ground and putting it together. The design of the bathroom, shelter, and parking that council and the town had committed to, as well as the construction of those items. We are estimating that to complete the project with everything that's still outstanding is approximately $1.575 million to complete. You take into account the grants, and that's where you come up with the $2.1 million kind of total project cost right here. As far as the town's commitment to the bathrooms, the parking, and the shelter, in order to move the project along and to meet the timeline, staff have been pursuing the design-build delivery method. Your typical delivery methods is DBB, or design bid build, where you hire a designer to design it, then it goes out to bid, and then it's actually built. This is actually getting a contractor and a design team to team together into one design build contract to help move things along. And there's some benefits to that, and we actually can get contractors moving earlier while we finish up the design. So the town has issued an RFQ and solicited design build teams. We went through an interview process and selected the most qualified team. We have selected a team consisting of Balfour Beatty Construction, Kimley Horn, and Ratio Design. So earlier, we went through kind of where the funding was at. If you look at what is remaining, basically after what has been spent today on the project, the Clayton Community Recreation Foundation is prepared to give an additional $100,000 to the remaining items. We have spent some of the in-kind services that were generated. We have $13,000 remaining. We have not spent the Part F grant, $87,000. And then the commitment of $700,000 from the town. So we have approximately $900,000 remaining to spend towards this project. As I mentioned earlier, $1.575 million to complete it. So we have a deficit here. We have a deficit of about $675,000. We've worked to close this gap. We have done many things trying to value engineer and try to get the prices down to complete the project without sacrificing quality or anything on the project. So with that's where we're at as far as a kind of an update on the town standpoint and where we stand. At this time, I'm going to invite up Clayton Community Recreation Foundation, allow you to give an update, and then after I'm done, come back and provide some recommendations on how we can move forward with this project. Dean?
Good evening, Mayor and the board. My name is Dean Penny. Been before you before in representing the Clayton Community Recreational Foundation. I don't have a whole lot of detail to add to what Joshua has provided to you tonight. I do want to say that we were pursuing parallel paths with the design and construction of the playground versus the town's piece of the parking and restrooms. And we halted our construction process after we went through an initial bid process because we realized there could be some savings by partnering and doing that as one joint project rather than two parallel projects. And so this process that we're proposing to the town with the design build and the selection of the Balfour Beatty team takes that into account. And as Joshua mentioned, we have gone through a value engineering process with them to reduce the scope and the cost down to what we feel like is bare bones needed to make this project really the quality of project it needs to be and the full scope. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Penny? Thank you, Dean.
Thanks.
So moving forward, taking into account a lot of things, obviously, we are working diligently on the Horn Street parking lot expansion here, expect to bid it out shortly. Another project, Town Square, just around the corner, and still working through the design of that and really what that exact scope looks like. One of the things that we would like to recommend is actually borrowing or reallocating some funds that were associated with the Town Square project and putting them toward this project in order to get it across the finish line and to complete it. Additionally, there is some Parks and Rec fund balance that we would be utilizing to fund the deficit. So we would recommend some budget items related to that, and I'll allow Robert to speak to those in a minute. We also recommend that we, as Dean alluded to, of combining these two projects and having one construction contract instead of two separate contracts. And obviously, there's some efficiency in that and mobilization costs and everything. So combining the projects, allowing the town to manage the project and getting us through the design of the restrooms, parking, and then into construction. In doing so, we recommend an agreement between the town and Clayton Community Recreation Foundation that basically just outlines the roles and responsibilities, process of acceptance of that playground equipment, and gets us to the end. And everyone understands the roles and everything. And then finally, we do recommend entering into a design-build contract with the selected design-build team that I've shared with you earlier. So with that, if there's any questions on it, if not, I'll turn it over to Robert to further talk about the budget items.
Mr. Grants.
So you're suggesting the possibility of redistributing funding from one project to another, i.e. from one project to the playground. What project or projects are you suggesting that we take the money from?
We're still working through stuff on the Town Square, and it's not ready to go to bid yet. We would recommend taking money associated with the Town Square project and reallocating it towards this, and then having that Town Square discussion in future CIP discussions.
Is there an option to utilize any of the bond money to take care of that shortfall? And if so, how do we go about that?
Town manager speak.
So the question is, can we use the bond money for the Harmony Playground project or for the Town Square project?
The playground project.
Okay. The short answer to that is yes, you could use the bond money for that. The reason the staff is not recommending that you do that is due to the timing of when you can actually draw down that bond money. As the team could get up and the foundation would get up, they've been working diligently on this project, and the schedule and bidding out Balfour at this point has put it in motion, trying to get that project completed in a schedule that would, if you waited till the bond money was available, would put you into the delay of getting that Harmony Playground project completed in the time that's on that schedule. So it's really a timing issue as to why the staff's recommending that you don't go after the bond money to do that, as opposed to looking at some of these other project funding that we had established.
Okay.
I could just add one point of clarification, because I think this question came up. There's nothing about this project that makes it not something that you could have chosen to do or in the future do with bond money. I think what I'm hearing is it is not feasible to do this project with our current bond money, our bond referendum. So there's nothing about the project itself. And I think there may have been some thought that there was maybe something about the project that would make it kind of ineligible for a bond project. Yes, you can use bond money for something like this. You kind of can't use the current bond referendum money for this project in its current timeframe.
Mr. Howard.
It's my understanding that it may be just wording of what we're saying. I'm recommending that we use the term borrowing the funds that are allocated for this park improvement over here to get the Harmony Playground jump-started. And when we start getting bond money, then we reimburse the town for the money that we feel necessary to put back into our fund balance.
Adam, do you want to take that?
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
We did consult with our bond attorney for that very purpose of being able to pass a reimbursement resolution and reimburse ourselves out of the proceeds of the bond. Because we don't feel that we'll have bonds ready to be issued within the time frame that would line up with a reimbursement resolution, we're unable to do that. There's a definite sunset to a reimbursement resolution, and we feel like the time frame for us to actually issue bonds would be outside of that, and we're not allowed to do it. We did consult with our bond attorney on that.
However, the nature of the bond, though, is that you all will get to choose where you're going to spend that bond money. So if you choose that you want to spend that bond money on the town square parking lot, for example, that's certainly well within your ability to choose. And there will be a process for you all to, in the community and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, are going to develop the scope of how they're going to spend down that bond referendum dollars. So if the town square parking lot remains one of your top priorities, it certainly is something you could use that money towards, and obviously other projects as well.
So how much money are we expected to advance towards this project? And when would we be able to get some bond money back for it?
Well, this might be a good segue for Robert McKay. Come on.
There's a couple things here, and because some of the funding that we were recommending, it is from two sources, I'm going to allow Robert to speak to that specifically.
Okay, so for this particular project, as Joshua mentioned, we have $700,000 budgeted in the current year budgeted for Harmony Playground. That was for our facilities. In order to move the project forward, we need to appropriate an additional $400,000, $400,190 out of the general fund, transfer over to the capital project fund that's set up. So we're actually going to transfer a total of $1.1 million. $700,000 is already budgeted. We're going to transfer an additional $4 million, okay, over to the capital project fund. The capital project fund, where this project's going to be going, has been set up several years back, and it currently has a fund balance in it of a little over $238,000. So we're actually going to incorporate the Harmony Playground project, $1,575,000, into that capital project fund, and we're going to transfer the $1.1 million from the general fund to fund that project in conjunction with the existing fund balance that's already in that capital project. So to answer your question, we need $400,000 additional dollars out of the general fund to appropriate to move the project forward. Now, yes.
Not the $1.1 million.
Right, now, yeah.
Okay.
And that's what the budget amendments reflect.
Any other questions or comments for staff? Thank you, Robert.
So there's a total of 3 items before you, and in order, we would need you guys to approve the budget amendments first, and then we can proceed into the agreement, and then finally the construction contract.
So, as I said, we have 2 budget amendments. One is the general fund amendment, and one is the amendment to the capital project budget ordinance. So again, on the general fund side, we're going to appropriate an additional $400,000, use the existing $700,000 that's budgeted, transfer that $1.1 million over to the capital project fund. In the capital project fund, we're incorporating this project, the Harmony Playground project, at a total cost of $1,575,000. And we're funding that with the $1.1 million transfer from the general fund in conjunction with the Part F grant and a $100,000 contribution donation from the CCRF. And that, today, that will get us forward and allow us to complete the project. That $1,575,000 has a $75,000 contingency built in, which staff felt was adequate in case there's some unexpected surprises.
If I understand you, the only thing we're asking for tonight is $400,000 transferred.
Correct.
Okay.
Additional appropriation, $400,000.
We'll deal with the rest of it as it comes up, is my understanding.
This is going to fully fund the project. There won't, unless we go over, have an overrun, we're not going to be expecting to come back to council asking for money, for more money for this project. This is going to fully fund it. This is going to fund the $1,575,000.
He's moving forward. 400 out of our general fund. 400. That makes it 1.5. Then he was asking permission to move that to two actions. I'm good. These are the budget. Okay.
Mr. Granis.
So, Mr. Mayor, before we make a motion or take a vote, I just want to put for the record that I've spoken to approximately 67 folks about this situation. The number of 400,000 that I used, that I did not use, I take that back. Let me rephrase that. When I was talking with individuals, I was using the amount of $600,000 with respect to the discussion that we had. The purpose of my discussion with these citizens, most of which I don't know or know somewhat, was to get the experience of what some of the citizens feel about us having to do this as a board and a community. And out of the 67, I had 66 in favor of moving forward and 1 in opposition. And based on that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I'd like us to authorize the town manager or designee to execute the agreement with the Clayton Community Recreation Foundation.
Mr. Granis, if I may interrupt you for a moment, I think the desire is to first have the budget, just the budget ordinance amendments. So the third one not
first?
right on your agenda, apologies.
Okay.
But the third one, and then Josh will come back and speak to the agreement and
Okay.
then vote on it. Apologies.
So let me retract that motion and issue this motion. I make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 2020-02-01 and 2020-02-02.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the 2 stated ordinances. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, now with that out of the way, again, we would recommend that we go into an agreement with Clayton Community Recreation Foundation, outline the roles and responsibilities specific to this project. We would request authorization for the town manager or designee to execute the agreement with CCRF.
Mr. Granis.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the town manager or designees to execute the agreement with the Clayton Community Recreation Foundation. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
And the last and final action related to this would be to approve construction contract and DB design build contract with the selected team, move forward with an approximate completion date, finishing this project in the fall of this year.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the town manager or designee to execute the design build contract and subsequent supplemental agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, up next on your agenda is the Neuse River Water Reclamation Facility.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, J.D. Solomon, last time I appeared before you was on November 18th to report the business cases, the summary of those for the new water reclamation facility. I'm happy to report, if there's something to report, that there's been no changes, no updates, plus or minus to anything I told you on November 18th yet, except one thing, and that's the cash flow for the project. And so what we're asking for tonight, and Robert will give you more details on the financial side. I'm really here to tell you about the project delivery impacts first, but a request to have the town reposition some additional cash flow money so that we can keep the project moving forward. A little bit of history on the request. Back in September timeframe, the manager and staff met with the local government commission. They said at that time some of the things they wanted to do on the financing and the design build aspects of the plant, that they would like to see the business cases and to know exactly more of what was needed exactly. And so we rushed to get that done. And again, that brought me to you guys November 5th and November 18th to do that. We went down the week after Thanksgiving, the same group of folks and myself, to meet with the local government commission to get on their agenda for January, and hopefully to get a thumbs up now that we'd given them the details. They needed more details. And so within a few days, we rushed to get a package to them. They acknowledged, to the best of my knowledge, it was acceptable, but that they had to take it further up the line. And we have not heard back anything since then. Although we've made several contacts, staff has, and I've made a couple contacts kind of on the side to see if I get some action. We realized last week, after some of our updates and knowing that the LGC has a meeting next week, that we would not be probably on the January meeting and not on the February meeting and maybe not on the March meeting. And so we're working diligently now to resolve that and to get a solution from the local government commission. We had a meeting this morning to talk about what is Plan B, knowing that you all had a council meeting tonight. And what we really have concluded, and this is really why I'm speaking tonight, is that the delivery of the project really needs the money to keep it going. We talked back in November that what was going to happen would be a large project, the biggest in the history of Clayton, that money would have to be expended. It wouldn't be like the normal tens or hundreds of thousands, it would be millions of dollars. And that still all holds true. And so to keep the environmental assessment moving, which we need in 6 months, to keep our funding from the state revolving fund process going, to keep our rifle range assessment going, to keep the rifle range remediation going, and some other money we may need for some of the nitrogen credits. We realized it was necessary to have this reallocation of some cash flow money from the town to keep things moving. We would not be requesting this was it not necessary. The best projections we would have, it's without this money, it may be as late as May or June before we might have money to draw down. And so if the project's going to meet its deadline, we really need this allocation of money. And I'm glad Robert is here because I'm not qualified to talk about where that comes from and how that comes around. But Robert, if you'll take it over and talk about the funding related to the project.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Robert McKay, Finance Director. Tonight, we have 3 budget amendments, separate budget amendments. They're all related. The reason we have 3 is just to comply with some statutory requirements. The first budget amendment is simply due to the system development fee legislation. We collect system development fees in our water sewer fund, and we're required to transfer those over to our our SDF Capital Reserve Fund. So the first budget amendment is we're budgeting the revenue stream that we've actually collected for those system development fees in the current year. And then we're going to transfer those funds over to the CRF, which is required by statute. So that's the water sewer fund, that budget amendment you see there. We're transferring over our collections to date are roughly $3.5 million on system development fees for sewer and approximately $440,000 for water. So we're going to take statutorily, we're going to transfer that money over to our capital reserve fund, the SDF Capital Reserve Fund. And then over on the SDF Capital Reserve Fund, which is Fund 505, this is where we're actually going to transfer. We've earmarked $3 million, as JD mentioned, to move this project forward to cover the engineering and environmental costs, professional services related to move this project forward. So we're, again, statutorily, we have to transfer the money out of the CRF back over to where the money is going to be spent. In this particular case, we've got a capital project fund set up for the Neuse River Water Reclamation Facility, and that's Fund 641. So that last budget amendment shows us coming in, shows the transfer coming in from the Capital Reserve Fund, and we're increasing our professional services expenditure budget for those engineering and environmental services for $3 million. And we expect that we will, at some point, we'll reimburse ourselves for this $3 million financing, which is, as JD mentioned, we're trying to work with the LGC on to get that all ironed out as we move forward. But right now, the matter at hand, we need the short-term cash infusion to move this thing forward. So we're asking council to approve all three of those budget amendments tonight. They're all related for the Neuse River Water Reclamation Facility. Move it forward.
All right, questions or comments for staff?
So I'm going to make the assumption, if we make these adjustments or transfers, that eventually, when funding does become available, the funds that we're removing now will be put back. Is that fair to say, or no?
Yes, we reimburse ourselves. We would, that money would, the cash would come back into our water sewer fund.
Okay. And a question of Mr. Solomon. Do you perceive this issue of lack of communication to be unusual, or is it kind of status quo? I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
I'll say, without calling names, this morning that several of the financial consultants on the phone said it was not unusual, unfortunately, and that they'd seen this kind of behavior out of the LGC in the recent past. And so apparently that is a complaint. I'm personally a little shocked because I'm used to dealing with the state revolving fund and some of the other folks, and they will call you back within a week or two, even with bad news. But this seems to be somewhere maybe the nature of the business of the LGC right now.
And do we have any other alternatives to try to get in communication with them, or have we exhausted all of them, or what's the status of that?
Yes, we actually, on a different matter, we had someone go down while they were talking with a different matter today, and I'm going to be down on Wednesday, running down somebody that I know they're going to be at a different meeting, so I'll be kind of waiting outside the door for them when they come out. And we will push this as rapidly as we can in the coming weeks to move it forward. Now, if there is a reluctance to let us borrow some up front for the money and wait and hold it back, you know, we may be back before you with some other action we may need. But we're assuming if we can get with everybody and have a conversation that what we're asking for is not unreasonable by any means in my experience, and so we should be good. But there's a possibility they'll say they don't like something else, and we'll have to do something different then.
And I'm going to make an assumption here, but I would assume that supportive legal counsel is either being used or can't be used beyond what we've done to try to get in communication / get answers.
Yes, there would be legal and political things we could do. Right now, we're trying to work kind of staff to staff without that. So,
well, my sense would be if we don't have to go that route, it might be more expeditious to get the answers we're looking for.
I think you're right on that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, so you're looking for three individual motions.
Right. Because each one of those amendments, I think Kimberly, you signed numbers to them, didn't you? Yes.
So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution. Mr. Thompson.
Motion, we adopt Resolution 2020-04.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the resolution as presented. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Thompson.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2020-02-03, amendment to capital project budget ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the adoption of the ordinance 2020-02-03. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We got one more.
We have two more. We have 04 and 05. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Resolution 2020-02-04, amendment to the fiscal year 1920 budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the amendment 2020-02-04. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve ordinance 2020-02-05, amendment to the fiscal year 1920 budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 2020-20-05. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Nervous.
Well, the motion
With
carries.
that kind of money.
Me too. Definitely make you pay attention. Thank you, JD. And thank you, Robert. Okay, up next is staff reports, beginning with the town manager.
We have a new business item first, Mayor.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, really?
I'm trying to save you money, Mr. Mayor.
Well, step on up to the podium, good sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Blair Myhan, Police Chief. I am asking your authorization to allow me to proceed with two COPS grants that came up. So I believe that we have a very significant need for increasing staff in the police department in an effort to minimize the impact, the financial impact on the town, especially in light of everything else that's going on. There are two grants in particular that I'm looking to apply for. The first one you see is the hiring grant. So I'm going to ask for 4 officers with that grant. They are funded at 75% a year for 3 years, and then of course after the 3rd year is complete, there's zero funding. We own them 100% at that point. The second one is, and I hope I'm not biting off more than I can chew here, but the second one is a micro grant. It's a 100% funding for 1 year. So it's really designed to, it's for community policing. So our efforts that we've most recently taken on with our civilian response to active shooter and some of our church security surveys in schools and our active shooter program, I think fits nicely in with this program. My hope is that it would be able to fund our efforts in doing that for 1 year. I'm anticipating, $20,000 grant or something at that level, not significant, but enough that we have zero financial impact to our budget for the first year. And that's the only grant applications out right now, so.
And once the second micro grant is complete, do you feel good about having funding in your budget to continue this, or how do you see that playing out?
I think that I'm looking at about a $20,000 a year expense if we're going to continue at the level that I would like for this to grow. And that's primarily with funding a part-time person, or one of our retirees as a reserve officer. That's about the salary that it would cost if they worked their 1,000 hours a year. Could be less, it wouldn't be any more than that. And I'm hoping that that allows us to expand this program. We got very positive feedback over the weekend. We are planning on doing one class a month moving forward, plus offering our services to churches that request it, and also enhancing the department's ability to train our personnel. So I don't know where we'll go after year one. If we're successful with this, that would be something that we would just be in discussion with the manager as part of our budget process. If this is something that, doesn't reoccur, if it, doesn't come open for us to apply again.
Awesome. I think it's a great idea. Mr. Bunn?
So with this hiring grant, you said 4 officers, correct?
Yes, sir.
I know, pull out your crystal ball. I know it's not time yet, but this year, what were you thinking about?
This year, I'm going to ask for 8 officers. I would ask for 8 with this grant. I haven't got into the grant fully yet. Navigating the federal government grant system, as you can imagine, is not easy, and the police chief has little patience for computer software and stuff. So as I get through it, I would normally say I'll just ask for all 8. I don't know how it's going to work. There's obviously a limited number. I think the number I saw was about $417 million for this grant. My concern, though, is that if I get into it and the grant says, because it's federal government, it's usually funded October 1, they say you've got 60 days or 90 days to hire these officers. I don't have the personnel to hire 8 at one time. And I'm concerned that we would get into a grant, not be able to meet our portion of it, and it could reflect negatively on us long-term in the grant. I think 4 is more reasonable, that I could plan to hire, 4 when the grant begins, and we'd get the maximum dollars we could out of them. But there will be additional asks for personnel this year. I don't know where we'll be with the budget process when it comes to council, but that will be what I'm asking the manager for this year.
Thank you, Blair.
Mr. Grants?
Chief, do you have a fallback plan if you don't qualify for these grants? And if so, what would it be?
Asking you to fund it 100%.
And do we have a sense of what that is in terms of dollars?
First year cost for a police officer is about $100,000, maybe $120,000 first year. After that, it just becomes salary and benefits and reoccurring equipment replacement costs. So if we're paying a brand new officer, say low 40s, $44,000 or something, after year 1, you're looking at, with salary and benefits, somewhere, $60,000 to $70,000, and considering a little bit of replacement costs on an annual basis to fund an officer, of course, assuming pay raises and things throughout the year. This will be part of maybe longer discussion with y'all, maybe at the retreat, as to my justification for asking for these number of officers this year. But the need exists. I'm hoping the grant will allow us to ease the impact on the town, at least for the next 3 years.
Anyone else? Mr. Grants?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the chief's request to go ahead and apply for these grants.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize staff to present with the application. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And Chief, good job planting the seed for staffing early on ahead of the fire chief. That strategy is brilliant.
If the fire chief asks for more firemen this year, there's a problem. I have a word with him.
Note to self. Thank you, sir. All right. Okay, up next is staff reports, beginning with the manager. Town attorney?
No report.
Town clerk?
No reports, thank you.
Other staff?
Mayor and council, Blair Myhan, Police Chief again. I want to inform you of 2 events that are coming up here in the next couple months. So we were approached by two different groups. And so the first one is the Raleigh Ride, which is part of the Ride to Hope. It is a law enforcement ride, 500-mile bicycle ride from here to Washington, D.C. in advance of Police Week. They take different routes every year, and this year they elected to come to Clayton. So on May 6th in the morning, about 9 a.m., we anticipate about 60 bicyclists and a few support vehicles to stop at the police department and do a brief wreath-laying ceremony for our fallen officers on their way through North Carolina up to Chesapeake, where they will ultimately meet with the larger group and ride up to D.C. So that will be open to the public, and of course, we'd love to have a lot of support in that. So that's happening on May 6th. Also, the Wall That Heals, if anybody has heard of it, is a three-quarter replica of the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., and it travels around the country. It's a nonprofit organization, and it will, you apply for this, and they come to your town if selected, and they set up for a couple days, and people get to see it and that sort of thing. So this year, Garner applied, and they were chosen as one of the cities. And so in talking to the organizers, they asked if they could drive through Clayton on their way to Garner. So they will, the plan is right now that they will stage at Municipal Park on April 15th about noon. There is a semi truck that carries this wall and other stuff. And what they want to do is encourage community involvement in this. So I've pointed them in the direction of the chamber, but they'll look to hand out little flags to people, have people kind of lining Main Street and showing some patriotic support as this thing drives down Main Street and then turns right on 70 and ultimately goes to Benson Park in Garner and parks there for the next couple days. But I thought it was a great opportunity for us to be showcased in this. They like to ride through downtowns, specifically on main streets. I thought it was a great opportunity for us. Of course, as a veteran, I'm in support of any type of a military type endeavor. So unless y'all have any major concerns, we would give them a pass on the commercial motor vehicle route that day, but we would just kind of let them come through town. Highway Patrol escorts them. We would be somewhat involved minimally. It won't be a major disruption. It's more of an opportunity for people to kind of come out and show their support for it, and then we'll just take them to Garner, and they'll move on to another city.
Nice.
15th, about 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Great. Thank you. Questions or comments?
I think that you've done a good job with that, and I appreciate you reaching out to our partners at the chamber, and getting the community involvement in this. I think that's big, and it's good to see that the town reaches out to our partners and involves them in these things. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Chief. All right, I'll now open the floor for informal discussion and public comment. Anyone wish to speak, please step forward and state your name for the record. All right, no one wishing to speak, I'll turn it over to council for comments. Mr. Holder.
It's bothered me for some time that we have the opportunity for public comment discussion after our meeting instead of the beginning. I'd like to see us move that to right after the consent agenda, or maybe both places. Because I hate to ask our residents to sit here 1, 2, 3 hours waiting for us to finish so they can get up and state what's on their mind.
All right. Mr. Grants.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have an issue with that. I think the idea is certainly warrants discussion. And I know that we have a retreat coming up. Maybe we could spend a short period of time to chat about this at the retreat.
Anybody else? Mr. Holder, I will give that some consideration, and we'll have some discussions at retreat about that as well.
Okay.
I don't object to the format. For me,
for being here since the mid-90s in some form of capacity. It's just always been that way, but it doesn't mean it always has to be that way.
Well, I think it's an imposition on our residents that we require them to sit here as long as we are conducting our business. When I suspect a lot of them get up and leave before they make their comments because they're tired of waiting. And I think it's just an imposition. I think it would be something that would be beneficial to our residents to change that.
Sounds good. All right, any other council comments? Mr. Granis?
I just want to make the council aware that I met today with several groups, or several senior citizens at the senior center, and had what I thought was a very productive Q&A. And I emailed the entire council, plus I believe Nancy and Adam, with questions that came up, some of which I was able to answer, others of which I was not really able to answer, and told the folks that I would be more than happy to get those answers and provide them for them in a timely manner. But it was, I felt it was a very productive discussion.
Thank you, sir. Stacy, is it possible to pull up the year in review video? So this past Thursday of last week, I had an opportunity to go to the Clayton Rotary Club and present Clayton's year in review for 2019. And Stacy Beard, our public information officer, and Nader, our genius in the back, hey Nader, created a phenomenal video that captured the very essence of the town of Clayton and its people and its history and its celebration. And it's one thing to go and deliver a State of the Union address about your town with notes verbally. Need to mention that it starts at 7 a.m. in the morning. And so they created a video that's phenomenal. And since our agenda was cut short, I want to thank Councilman Bunn for being there as a town council member supporting the mayor. He was the only one who showed up, and 7 a.m. in the morning. So thank you, Mr. Bunn. And Adam, of course, was there. Thank you, Adam. And I say that facetiously because, well, actually I don't, because Bobby wants to get credit every chance he can, so I needed to put his name on the record for that. But it was just a tremendous way. Nowadays we talk about how things used to be and how things can be. 8-minute video can deliver not only a message, but it can convey feeling and so much more. So I don't know, if you can't get it, we'll
Pulling it up now, sorry.
but it is well worth, and particularly since we have honored guests in the back working on their citizens badge, I think you guys will really love this.
Mr. Mayor, there's been several comments on Facebook about that.
Yeah.
Were they good?
Yes, very good.
Can you hear it?
No.
Hold on one second. We're gonna plug in this way.
Almost like a metropolis, from a little crossroads south of metropolis.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting for that, I just want you to know that I was on my way to conduct business with a combination of MPOs that morning. So I was on town duty.
Let the record reflect, Mr. Granis was on town duty instead of being at Clayton Rotary at 6:45 a.m. No, thank you. That's funny.
Have I? Start again.
So the gentleman at the beginning of the video is the oldest citizen in Clayton.
I mean, completely different world than it was when I grew up. We've become, to me, almost like a metropolis from a little crossroads town to a metropolis.
Happy birthday, Clayton. I'm so proud of you and so honored to be a small part of this wonderful and rich community. I wish you 150 more years. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of all the magic that happens in this beautiful town.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Jingle bells, jingle. Clayton is killing. So great. He's on NCDOT. Clayton, welcome to Grace.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really lovely, and I'm so glad that Clayton put this program on, and it's such an honor to be here. The opportunity can really affect the way that we relate to each other. These kind of programs hopefully will help people feel that change is not scary. It can be actually something wonderful.
Now it is my privilege and honor to administer the oath to Councilmember Avery Becker. I, Avery Becker, I do solemnly and sincerely swear, humbly and sincerely swear, that I will support and defend to my United States of America, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and to tomorrow. So help me God. Congratulations.
The community, the people that are willing to serve. And I serve because I love it.
No one has more passion and love for the town of Wullenwaber than this little boy right here on our side of the
Through life, all of us encounter health issues, and when you do, it makes you appreciate life that much better. And this is one of those times where not only the patients are, but our guys experience it also.
I just wanted to say thank you so much to the first responders that are wrong. Without them, these work would not have and I'm just very thankful.
When we interview our guys, we ask them, why do you want to be on fire? The majority of the answer we give is they want to help people in our community. This is part of it.
That's what about really is about community, and it's about uniting the community itself. We're citizens before we're police officers. These are the 99% of the days that being a police officer is all about, and that's what we love to do. Just something we want to do for the children to make sure they have a good Christmas. You were able to donate 45 boxes of school supplies for the 9 area Clayton schools. These teachers pour themselves into these kids. It is much more than a job or a career for them. It truly is a calling.
What do you think about these fish and your design, your Spider-Man fish? She's going to be in town hall, and it's going to be out on the relay for people that go on walks or ride their bikes to see.
I think they're gonna love it. Very proud I did.
We're very proud of all of you guys. It's a lot to take on.
Thank you. You are doing something way more than breaking ground on playground today. You represent a time where people can come together regardless of condition. You are telling the world that this community exists for everyone.
was probably my favorite movie growing up. The moral that's taught the story of how it's not about the destination you're going to, but it's about the people you meet along the way and how they help you.
We're very proud of this display, proud for our partnership, for the beautiful artwork that we have displayed all throughout the year. Many employees really contributed, even employee spouses contributed to these photos, and I couldn't agree more that they really demonstrate, I think, what we do in the town of Clayton. And I can't be more proud to work with these individuals and many others that are not in these photos, because I can truly say that they are some of the most committed, the most dedicated people that you will ever meet.
Today, opening this facility in the name of one of our town managers is a very humbling opportunity. He had vision to know that Clayton was going to grow so fast that if it didn't have infrastructure, it was not going to survive.
I want to begin today by thanking Alyssa Diggs and Eric. We're so glad to have y'all here. And I'm so excited that we get to honor two things in this way. It's a great day to celebrate visionary leadership. It's a great day to celebrate partnership and what happens with partnership. And today we are making history because this pre-treatment and wastewater facility is phenomenal.
In a sultry summer of our 1768. You see, in those days, settlers were just pouring into these pots. The land was cheap and it was here for the taking.
My name is Clayton Claudius Miles. I was born in 1856.
Hey, I'm Appleby, and I've lived in Clayton my whole life. I was born in 1900 and started working at the mill when I was 9.
Well, my name's Duke Duncan. I was born here in Clayton in January of 1890.
My name is Ashley Moore. I was born on March 27th in 1848. It is my hope after being dead for 112 years, and I know I look good, that when Clayton celebrates its 250th birthday, that we still find Clayton a place of great people who appreciate their neighbor and look out for their neighbor and build an economy and a neighborhood of love and peace that makes everybody want to come to.
Is that not awesome? So, my council comment is to thank everybody who makes Clayton what it is and to thank our staff who can help us to communicate exactly what that means in a way that's meaningful and memorable. All right, thank you for indulging me. If there's nothing else to come before this board for business for this evening, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I would like to take this moment just to thank Stacy, all the staff that was involved. And since y'all are here tonight, you get a sneak preview of something I'm very proud of, and we all should be proud of. Stacy's going to bring it up on the screen, and I'll let you comment, Mr. Mayor. There it is, live shot of downtown Clayton, soon to be on our website and on TV in your area, I hope.
Awesome.
It's a pretty awesome site.
Very cool.
A lot of staff has worked on this for a long time, and I want to personally thank them for this. I mean, this is cool to me right here.
Very cool.
That's all I got. Thank you for your creativity in wanting this. I think it's going to be great for our community. I do too. You got to promote ourselves.
And we're not gonna let the record reflect how mad you were it didn't get done fast enough. All right, anything else to come before us?
Move with adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night.